Vivisection is a lie!
How many animals have to die?
Vivisection is a trick!
They make money while we get sick!
Hey, hey! Oh, ho! Animal experiments have to go!
So basically, I've been coming to these protests since I moved to California. And what I have found is that, first of all, on the ground, grassroots activism is one of the most important tools that we have. I also feel like it's really important to talk about the fact that it's taken us, you know, we go along and we say, we get discouraged. We say, nothing's changing. I'm here year after year. They're still experimenting on animals and nobody knows about it except the animal rights community. Or we say, I can't believe it. I just went into this restaurant and there's not one vegan option. Or I can't even look at my Facebook feed because I'm depressed the rest of the week because I've seen this cat being experimented on and having her, you know, her ability to walk taken away, you know, in fraud science. Or I can't look at the eyes of the pigs anymore going to slaughter. I can't do it. And we get really burnt out and we get really depressed. But I think we have to look at the fact that we are positioned to literally bring this revolution home. Yay. We can. And the reason why we can, our very secret weapon that we have to remember, generations before us did not have, is social media. We have now taken the power away from mainstream media, which is still being fed lies by different corporations. They're still taking their money, and we're literally disrupting the system. Because now, when you look at the younger generations, where are they getting their news from? It's not ABC News. It's not even CNN. It's whatever they can get on their Facebook feed, their Instagram feed, their Twitter feed, and that's us. So we're in this position where I truly believe that if you look at activism in the 80s or the 90s, or even like when we first started in 2001, 2002, we are going to see a skyrocket of veganism, of people who are now against animal research and animal testing, and people who are ready to see the changes because finally they are able to see what happens in laboratories. They are able to look into the eyes of animals who are locked in crates, who are, you know, screaming their way to the slaughterhouses. Finally, people can look at this and say, I don't want to be a part of that. So that's why we need to be very, very organized, and we need to use every form of activism that we have. And so that means, yes, coming out and protesting in front of, you know, giant institutions. But it also means when we're just at home to look up every legislator's Twitter and Instagram and Facebook page and hit them over and over and over again, because they care what we have to say, and they care because we decide if they are going to be voted into office or not. We decide how their public persona is going to be perceived. That is on us. They work for us, and finally we're able to get them where they live. So either they can be a hero and we can say, oh my gosh, I'm telling all of my friends to vote for you. You are an incredible hero for animals and you care about public health. Or we can say, you are the devil incarnate and we want you out of office now. So it's an exciting time. You know, I love to watch old videos of activists, and one of my favorite documentaries that if you haven't watched it, I so encourage you to watch it. It's called Act Up, and it's about one of the most important activist groups, I think, in history, which is when they were fighting for drugs for AIDS. And it's called United in Anger. Now, this was a time that everyday average people were getting together, usually at the Gay and Lesbian Center on 13th Street, which is where I grew up in Manhattan. And without the use of social media, they got together and they wanted to make noise. So I remember that there was the cardinal who, you know, because of religion, said that people shouldn't use condoms, which was at a time when, you know, AIDS deaths were basically a world war. Everybody was dying. You know, it was not something that people could protect themselves from unless they used condoms. What did they do? Well, when the cardinal came, they went into the church and they did a die-in. And they were screaming at him, "We are dying, and you are not helping us. You are killing us." And that made all of the national news. Now, of course, today we can do die-ins at places and we can just use social media and reach almost the same amount of people, if not more. They shut down Times Square. And when people were dying, they took their dead bodies and they marched them on Washington. And then the next day, and the next year after that, they took the remains of all of their loved ones in the urns and they dumped them on the lawn of the White House. This is the kind of activism that we need and that works because it shows the true faces of animal suffering. So anytime that you can do that, I mean, I love to tell people that they're gonna look better and they're gonna look younger and they're gonna, they're gonna have better, visits at the doctor by going vegan. And that works, sometimes, especially for like vain people, that can work a little bit. Or to tell them that, climate change is real, and if you're having children, there's not going to be a world for them, in like a couple of years. Like, we're literally not going to be sustainable, and that works for some people. But typically, when you turn people vegan or get them interested in animal rights and anti-vivisection and things like that, what keeps them vegan and what keeps them an animal rights activist is when their hearts have been cracked open. And the way that we do that is by telling the stories of these animals, by letting them look in their eyes, by letting them see their death process. That's how we keep vegans engaged, part of our movement, and that's how we grow our movement. And that's what we can do on social media. So for every activist that's feeling depressed and feeling like, oh my gosh, we've been fighting this for so many years. I mean, remember, PETA started in the 80s, and we haven't gotten anywhere. You have to remember, we are now at a point in history that we have never been in before. And that is why this is the year of the vegan. That is why we are actually seeing younger people joining together and marching, not just in this country, but in every country. There's animal rights people getting out there, and they're getting on mainstream media, but that's not how they're talking to each other. They're talking to each other on social media. So when I joined Social Compassion and Legislation, I was sort of, getting a little bit burnt out with going to every single protest. And I realized that the way to make real change is by changing the laws. I got tired of begging people to do what's right. I want to force them to do what's right. I want to legislate kindness, and I want them to go to jail if they abuse an animal or have to pay a huge fine. And so the way that everybody can help by doing that is obviously get to know your legislators. I was really surprised. I was very green when I started with Social Compassion, and I was like, you mean we can just walk into the Capitol and go through the metal detector, and I can just knock on a legislator's door and be like, hi, I want to talk to you about animals, and they'll say okay, or one of their people will come down and listen to me. They have to, because they work for us. So I encourage everybody to go meet with your legislators, make friends with them, and find them on social media and tag the heck out of them, because believe me, they watch it, they monitor it, they hear about it, and they want to look like heroes. They don't want to be voted out of office. We have the ability to do that, and the animals have no voice. So we're all that they've got. So feel encouraged, get everybody together, constantly go live on social media. All of your friends, your meat-eating friends, your friends that give money to, places like UCLA that are doing animal research, you can change their minds, but you gotta crack their hearts open. And our biggest weapon besides social media are the eyes of those suffering animals. So use them, feel encouraged. By the time next year comes around and we're all still here, I guarantee we're going to be in a much better position year after year, because we are going to win this fight. Thank you.